4,324 9,781,000,000 3,255,529 8 What S next for AI and cloud-enabled innovation in the Australian business environment in addition to the intuitive expectation that cloud-based technologies will offer major opportunities for business and economic benefits. Various quantitative studies have also demonstrated these likely benefits.
Most recently,
A Deloitte Access Economics report 1 across 8 focus markets finds the adoption of cloud services is forecast to contribute a further $160 billion to the Asia-Pacific economy from 2020 to
024
Public cloud expenditure will grow at 28% per annum, from $32.1 billion in 2019 to $116 billion in 2024, delivering significant productivity and economic benefits. Industries that comprise 50% of the Asia-Pacific economies are facing the most significant levels of disruption that could benefit from greater cloud adoption. Only 10% of businesses across the region believe they have a high level of cloud readiness, while 46% are hesitant or totally unprepared. 62% of businesses across the region expect their level of cloud adoption to grow in 3 years' time, although just under 30% expect adoption to remain unchanged. Across a range of emerging technologies
T
AI, IoT, AR, VR, a survey within the study highlighted AI as the technology which is expected to be used most on these new platforms. According to the report authors, the growing adoption of cloud services, their ever-increasing sophistication, and the forecasted take-up of cloud-based applications suggests that the productivity benefits of cloud will only increase. With that being said, the most significant reason for the authors of this book to dedicate our time and effort into this research and publication was our fear that Australian organizations will miss out on this opportunity.
Itai what?
Next 157 While Australia's track record of economic growth is a standout across many OECD nations, there are a range of concerning trends underneath the surface. For example, when excluding mining-related investments, the private sector has continually made smaller investments into the future. In other words, the data would suggest that there is less an attractive opportunity for future investment in the private sector over time. This trend is particularly concerning, given the significant and ongoing reduction in the cost of capital over the past 10 years. This relates to the worrying lack of complexity in Australia's economy as measured by the Economic Complexity Index, 3 that currently ranks Australia at 87th nation.
With between Uganda and Burkina Faso.
For a longitudinal comparison SACE, according to Harvard's Index 4 measures, since 1995, Australia's economic complexity has fallen in national rank from 55th to 86th. While China has risen from 46th to 16th, and Vietnam has risen from 107th to 56th. This indicates important factors about the quality and nature of value-adding that occurs in Australia's economy, related indeed to technological development and deployment. There are a range of possible explanations for these trends, some of which would be extremely concerning for the future of Australia's economic prosperity. For example, is it possible that there simply aren't enough long-term opportunities for innovation? We believe the most likely explanation is a risk aversion or disproportionately high risk-adjusted rate of return, particularly for large-scale, technology-enabled transformations. Reserve Bank chief economist Lucy Ellis says that the AI machine learning revolution is the first time that an apparent general-purpose technology is actually harder to use and requires a higher and rarer set of skills to operate than the technologies it seeks to replace. This is not just an issue of having enough people with PhD-level skills in designing the algorithms. Ellis, 20,185 What if we did nothing? The underlying principles that drive economic and competitive advantage don't change, however the underlying technology and supporting innovations do. By implication, business leaders should view the do-nothing option as one in which the organization is going backwards in relative terms, as competition continues to evolve. One simple and effective way to assess the competitiveness of an organization is across the value disciplines framework. 6 which defines 3 critical dimensions of competitive performance: customer intimacy, product leadership and operational excellence. To illustrate the extent of the disruption we expect, and the risk of the do-nothing option, We have listed a limited view of the impacts across these dimensions below. 158 What? Next, customer intimacy. This reflects the organization's ability to understand and support a customer's needs in the way they want to be served. AI and cloud technology has enabled people to be served in consistent ways across multiple channels.
G.
Enhanced in-person support, digital self-service, voice and others. And provides a way for organizations to structure much more consistent and holistic approaches to understanding current and future customer needs through internal and third-party data. Product leadership. This reflects the way in which products and services are innovated to provide better value to customers. As highlighted in the innovation chapter in this book, AI and cloud technologies are fundamental to a range of types of innovation. For example, enabling connectivity across an ecosystem to provide new services, creating unique and differentiated service. Operational excellence. This reflects the ability for an organization to be productive and efficient in its operation. While this book has tended to focus on revenue and margin-enhancing transformations, there are many applications of AI and cloud technology to drive increased efficiency and operational excellence.
D.
Proactive maintenance of large and complex assets. To illustrate the risk of not continually innovating and leveraging these technologies. Just imagine what would have happened to an organization like Netflix had they not disrupted their own mail-based business model through the use of video streaming and recommendation engine. Rather than being the leader in their sector, they too would have gone the way of Blockbuster.
Liqueuse, albeit at a smaller scale, had an organization like Hanningwell, see Chapter 3, not developed a direct-to-consumer channel.
It is reasonable to assume that they would have grown more and more distant from the end consumer and faded away as an organization. Is this just a passing fad?
In this context,
We wanted to go beyond our current state understanding of the state of how AI and cloud technology has disrupted business thus far and consider how this impact may change over the coming 10 years. Will these technologies be a fad, like the wave of 3D televisions? Or will business leaders look back at this period and regret that they didn't act earlier when they were faced with better options to transform their organizations? The adapted Gartner Hype Cycle, Figure 8.1, has been a helpful way of thinking through the phases of maturity and adoption for new technologies. While it's an imprecise science, it highlights the need to consider where we are at, in terms of adoption, and most importantly, the emotional and performance-related biases that may be holding back an appropriate business investment in new, technology-enabled capability. AI and cloud are now clearly past the hype section of the Figure 8.1 adapted cycle, and they defy the plateau effect when used as transformation agents. According to our case study company participant,
this overcoming what?
Next 159 of the plateau is built on correctly aggregating innovation, business transformation, and AI cloud enablement as shown in Figure 6.1. At each point in the cycle, it's easy to develop biases around the relative opportunity and risks associated with a new technology, and as such, we find this to be a helpful way of separating the hype from the true opportunity. We note that the original Gartner 7 hype cycle acknowledges a plateau, meaning a flattening, that both our Australian and global case study companies overcame. Through their continued transformation accomplishments, our adapted framework considers actual performance rather than Gartner's expectations as the key parameter on the vertical axis. Some of the fundamental disruptors are accelerating advancements in these technologies has enabled massive business disruption in markets across the world. But it is worth exploring whether these disruptors are receding, stable or accelerating, the latter being our viewpoint. We base this view from the changes on a supply side, increased talent and platform capability, and the demand side, customer expectations, globalized competition and regulatory change. One of the authors of this article began his career in a startup.
At that time in Australia,
The idea of investing in 5 years of a double-degree education to work for a business based in a house in Port Melbourne was considered by many of his friends as being a poor life choice. While Melbourne is still far from Silicon Valley, both physically and culturally, the cachet of being a techie and the supporting Figure 8.1 adapted Gartner Hype Cycle 160 What? Next startup community in Australia means that finding this talent is orders of magnitude easier than it was, even 5 years ag. Over that time period, universities have begun to offer specialized courses for previously niche fields like data science. While business schools have developed Master of Business Analytics courses focused on the holistic application of these ideas in the mainstream of business skill training. Institutions that were previously only accessible to the elite through multi-year degrees, like the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, began offering web-based training at a much more accessible entry point and outside the formal education sector. People can self-educate and develop skills through online platforms like Kaggle, a machine learning and data science community, or the many thousands of freely available YouTube tutorials. Seek estimate that there will be 27.7% more data science jobs over the next 5 years. Together with the continued improvement in these platforms, we expect the increased supply of capable talent to drive an increased pace of disruption. In parallel, we also expect the capability of the technology platforms to improve, as the hyperscalers Google, Amazon Web Services and Microsoft continue to grow and compete with one another through differentiation. Each of these organizations has a simple business model, in that they have significant investments in R&D and data centers and drive revenue primarily through the increased use of storage and computation on their platforms. This means that their future success is highly dependent on making their platform offer more capabilities than their competitors. Improved AI tooling, more simplified integration between technologies rather than racing to the bottom on a highly commoditized infrastructure cost comparison. Many analysts expect this to also result in the introduction of more vertical clouds, which offer functionality tailored for specific sectors and their use cases and regulatory requirements. The implication of all this is that the cost of innovation should continue to drop, as the time to develop and scale new business models on these platforms continues to shorten. While technology platforms have improved, so have the variety of business support services which an organization can access to provide a reduced cost of innovation. These include, but aren't limited to, end-to-end supply chain capability, offshore and in-market business process outsourcing and customer servicing. Altogether, these factors make up a range of supply drivers of continued disruption. From a demand perspective, it's hard to imagine a scenario where competition and expectations don't continue to increase. The drivers of these can be framed in a number of ways. For example, 1. Customer expectations only increase over time. Consumers have become accustomed to a level of service and capability in the internet era, which previously wasn't possible. When buying a product or service, customers now have a far greater set of options, often accompanied by detailed reviews and tips on how to get the most out of the prospective purchase. The proportion of internet natives will only increase over time, while the COVID pandemic has acted as a catalyst. Next 161 to rapidly drive adoption of digital technologies. There is no going back to the olden days.
2.
Globalized competition opens up more markets. Put simply, there is less and less rationale for organizations to limit themselves to competing within their home borders. This is particularly the case for asset-light businesses, given the low cost of entry to new markets. What makes us believe that this driver will accelerate over the coming years is the improved access and reduced cost for a variety of data about markets in which you currently don't operate.
3.
Regulatory change is moving in the direction of increased competition. Open banking is only a subset of the broader open data movement and is deliberately intended to drive competition and portability
of user data.
The removal of these moats will act as a catalyst for a new generation of startups and service enhancements enabled by AI and cloud technology. While there is an increased focus on privacy and the protection of user data, like GDPR in the European Union, we believe many organizations will invest beyond compliance to build new capabilities that will support their future growth.
Most uncertainty present opportunity.
Not threats. There are many areas of uncertainty which will significantly shape the future of global competition and the business models that will make up the successful organizations of the future. It is not difficult to generate a range of possible scenarios. A technologically divided world, in which Chinese and Western companies are unable to access one another's markets. The canceling of Russia and decoupling of Russia from the broader financial markets in response to the Ukrainian invasion is a prelude to such a scenario.
A fundamental change in consumer expectations or regulatory requirements,
which limit the use of advertising-based business models or business models whereby personal data is openly collected and sold to third parties. The extended or ending dominance of the FANGs Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google. The potential opening or closing of governments and public services to external service provision. These uncertainties are material and will have an outsized impact in certain sectors
G. Media.
This is a reason for increased investment of management time and capital into strategic planning, not an excuse to pause and wait it out.
โน้ต 1 Deloitte Access Economic N.D.
The cloud imperative, the unmissable opportunity for Asia Pacific.
www 2 Deloitte com out n pages Technology Article Cloud Driven Transformation HTM 162 watt
S next to Deloitte Access Economics.
N.D.
DOI 10.4324978100325552999. So what should I do now? We hope that this book has served both as an illustration of the opportunity for incumbent organizations to transform their business models as well as an inspiration for Actio. Because the magnitude of these shifts can seem insurmountable, we want to highlight the first steps that we would take to catalyst the transformation process. Genuinely assess whether your business model will thrive in the future. The disruption across sectors and markets over the past 15 years has been extensive, fundamentally shifting the valuation of many organizations. The biggest winners have been the organizations that can run a platform-based model, which incurs minimal additional cost as new customers come on board, or those with a network-based model, which created a more enduring competitive advantage through a data or intellectual property advantage. Those who have been most disrupted have had expensive distribution models which relied on barriers to entry that no longer exist. In this context, we believe the first critical step is to assess whether your existing business model will maintain a sufficient competitive advantage to endure into the future. When reviewing your own business model's future suitability, a basic re-questioning of Porter's 5 forces 1 can reveal significant risk and create the burning platform required to change. How will competition in the industry change? How might a potential new entrant gain share? How will the power of suppliers or consumers change? How could substitutes drive competition? Clarity on the specific changes in the competitive environment and market forces is a critical starting point to drive change in the organization. 164. So what should I do now? Create new business model options and align on the preferred future choices given the evolving and less constrained technology landscape. Businesses have a much broader range of business model options which they can economically design and implement. There are various strategy development frameworks available to boards and executives. But in our experience, the key for a successful strategy development process is to follow a strategy process which makes a comprehensive and integrated set of choices across the organization's future.
Aspiration.
Chosen markets, where to play, and competitive differentiators, how to win, capabilities and supporting management system. The book Playing to Win: How Strategy Really Works too provides excellent insights into why each of these choices is a critical part of an organization's strategy and on the strategy development proc.
S itself.
Articulated more simply, the successful future strategy needs to be more than a set of high-level feel-good statements. It must make specific, hard choices that impact the day-to-day workings of the organization. Take a broader lens to your innovation approach. 20 years ago, few people could have accurately predicted which products and services would be provided by our leading organizations, let alone the ways in which we now consume these services. To that end, nothing has changed. Looking forward, the candidates for business model innovations are numerous and increasingly involve collaboration with third parties and complex ecosystems. As described in Chapter 6, the most sustainable and high-impact transformations create value by combining transformation with innovation and technology enablement. While many organizations have functional silos that can execute on one or two of these priorities, we believe that there is a general need to uplift the focus on innovation without descending into innovation theater within most organizations. Objectively self-assess your ability to transform as competitive intensity increases and the underlying drivers of innovation become more complex. The skills and capabilities required to manage a business model transformation require more of the organization. The capability framework referenced in Chapter 2, Figure 2.1, is designed in a way that should enable self-assessment and self-reflection on whether your organization is well set up with the range of skills and capabilities required to successfully navigate through all stages of these transformation. The authors of this book have decades of experience across consulting, academia, and industry. In our experience, many organizations will be quite effective in 2 or 3 of the required capabilities. Unfortunately, few are born ready for this challenging new age across all required skills. Being clear about where the so what should I do now, 165 gaps are, and what needs to be done to close those gaps, is critical to the success of these transformations. Raise the prioritization and shared responsibility for technology-enabled innovation when writing this book. We took great care to focus on technology-enabled, rather than technology-driven, transformation. Our research and our own experiences have highlighted the risks and challenges of leaving the technology function with the responsibility to transform the entire organization. Whilst we are not opposed to having the appointed leader of these initiatives be from a technology function, we strongly believe that there is a need for the whole organization to understand the way in which they want to change their business model, and what they can do to better shape and guide the transformation.
In particular,
we want to highlight the importance of the different roles played across the organization. For boards and C-suite members, we suggest you thoroughly assess a range of potential strategies and ends. Ensure that the selected strategy is the one which is best suited to the future operating environment. This assessment includes the support that will be required once the strategy is selected, uplifting capabilities in risk management, investing in new skills, and supporting the experimentation and evolution of the business model through its ups and downs. For the top management team, we suggest you need to consider how to drive change in the ways of working, not just make an ask of the technology function. This includes shifting the mentality, skill sets, and operating rhythms that are expected in this changing environment. For the core of the business, we suggest you invest in uplifting and reskilling team members so that they are able to support the organization in its new business model. This will undoubtedly require major changes in operating models to break down silos and investment in digital technologies to empower staff to make better decisions more efficiently, as well as a broad change in investments in training and developing staff over the trajectory of their careers. Last but not least, the fundamental purpose of this book and its supporting research is to provide confidence and guide the revitalization of Australian businesses through the foreseeable future. Our hope is that we're able to inspire business leaders to go beyond thinking and to take action in the real world. To that end, we plan on revisiting this study in the coming years and hope that we can add to our insights and case studies with many more success stories.
we have established a web forum, World Wide Web, with modern transformation.
To capture these 166 So What Should I Do Now? Stories and promote the discussions. We would love to hear more from our readers and welcome any feedback or questions you might have.
โน้ต1 Porter M 1900
Appendices 171 Appendix 2. Further references, definitions, and background research. Business models. There has been considerable research conducted on business model innovation (BMI), its impact on organizations, and success factors associated with implementation. While there are many definitions of BMI in prior research, we use the definition by Sniher and Zott one that refers to BMI as the introduction of a business model that is novel in terms of its content, structure, or governance to the product market space in which the venture competes. They write that firms can innovate their business models by introducing novel elements in each of these core elements. It should also be noted there are several definitions of a business model itself. TIS2 describes business models as the architecture that defines how an organization delivers value to customers and generates profit. In their work to understand cloud-enabled BMI and transformation, Muhick and Bengtson 3 note that there are various motivations and triggers to BMI. In many cases, firms decide to adapt new technologies such as cloud in chasing common benefits such as lower cost, scalability, and standardization of process. AI and impact on BMI. AI technology is seen as an increasingly pervasive technology that organizations will need to adopt to keep up with competitors. A recent survey by Deloitte revealed that a majority of AI adopters believe that it will substantially transform their organization and industry over the next 3 years. The report finds that this acceleration of adoption might be driven by the proliferation of data science and machine learning platforms, greater computing power and improved algorithms, and that organizations are, in general, able to access these technologies easier than before and create value using them. Similarly, in a report by ESI Thought Lab, 60% of executives indicated their belief that AI was crucial for the future of their businesses due to its ability to create cost efficiencies, drive faster business growth and transform customer and employee experiences. The COVID-19 pandemic has further accelerated AI adoption due to the sudden spike in online use across every industry, and firms' requirements to process and analyze data quickly. However, the current wave of adoption has seen organizations focused primarily on utilizing AI for improving existing business models rather than creating new ones. The Deloitte survey mentioned above also reached this conclusion and found that this was likely due to the heavy emphasis on efficiency-related benefits in current AI business use cases. More research is required on how businesses can use AI to truly transform entire business models or create new ones. 172 Appendices. AI or cloud impacts on business transformation as can be inferred by the significant literature on business model innovation. There are a number of ways that an organization can undertake BMI. AI and cloud are just two means that leaders can adopt as drivers of their transformation, but a number of other technologies or other means could also be chosen. Thies found that while it is difficult to invent an entirely new business model in a highly competitive market, organizations that do so are periodically enabled by technological progress.
6. Consider iTunes.
For example, they write that the internet enabled a significant wave of innovation, not just to industries shifting online but creation of entirely new models through network effects, such as peer-to-peer and other marketplaces.
eBay, Twitter and Facebook are examples.
Cloud computing and impact on BMI. Cloud computing technology has been a significant driver of transformation for many years now, Actor et al. 7 write that as business across the work focus on lowering infrastructure costs, finding new revenue streams and digitizing their operations, cloud technology is a key enabler for these changes. In particular, cloud computing has proven to be a strong enabler for BMI in new venture. Alrokian 8 found that cloud computing not only enables a level of agility in value creation that supports faster adaptation of market needs using agile approaches, but also helps organizations make better decisions due to improved ability to collect data and measure performance. Newcomers versus incumbents. Who explores and who exploits? It is important to note that this factor is quite different for newcomers than incumbents. As newcomers do not have existing certainties to exploit, their initial choices are geared towards exploring new opportunities and are heavily influenced by their founders. This is seen in work by Sneher and Zott, 9, who looked at early-stage companies to understand what characteristics founders have, which lead to higher instances of BMI and their goal of exploring opportunity. They argue that founders' behavior, thinking style and decision-making patterns help shape their organization's BMI. Founders are seen to perform cross-industry scans to search for inspiration to design novel business models, engage in active analysis of industry players, leverage their ownership and expertise to influence BMI, and help facilitate the implementation of exploration through centralized decision-making leading to more novel solutions. Other factors that influence a firm's ability to explore new opportunities such as BMT include personnel turnover and environmental turbulence. March 10 found that having a modest level of personnel turnover actually helps increase exploration without reducing organizational knowledge due to the gains from diversity. Appendices 173 of experience, and that increasing environmental turbulence in the market makes it difficult for exploration to occur within short periods of time.
Christensen et al.
11 also refer to this balance when discussing disruptive innovatio. They find that managers use disruption theory to help make a strategic choice between a sustaining path or a disruptive one. When faced with a new entrant, incumbents must accelerate their own innovations to either offer even better products or services or acquire the entrant in order to defend their business. Exploring and exploiting Deloitte 12 surveyed a number of adopters of AI who ranked managing AI-related risks as their top challenge for initiatives.
Alongside Data Management and AI Integration Challenge,
the survey found that only 4 in 10 adopters believed their organizations were fully prepared to address these risks. These were potential strategic, operational and ethical risks associated with adopting AI. Being adequately prepared to manage these types of risks is therefore a crucial antecedent to BMT. The same study also found that cybersecurity, AI failures, misuse of personal data and regulatory uncertainty are also key risks that organizations face when adopting AI. If organizations are less able or prepared to manage these risks, it may affect the likelihood of significantly transforming their business model using these technology. Just over half of the participants in the Deloitte study also indicated that these emerging risks and negative public perceptions of AI has led to slowing down of AI adoption by their organizations. This also brings to light that there are various types of risks associated with BMT, and organizations should take a nuanced approach as to which risks may be acceptable versus not. For example, the aforementioned report by ESI Thought Lab 13 found that while over 60% of insurance firms know of the importance of AI for efficiencies in underwriting and administrative processes, the regulatory uncertainty, cybersecurity risks and ethical concerns have collectively forced the industry to progress more cautiously. Some risk naturally accompanies significant disruption or innovation of business models.
Lee et al.
14 found that if there is a culture of conservatism that solely focuses attention on exploiting rather than exploring, it is unlikely to lead to innovation. They argue that BMI requires leaders to allow a culture of taking risks and enable exposure to new ideas. On the other hand, business history is littered with cases of firms that burn too much cash seeking an innovation edge, and that never achieved a return on investment. This antecedent factor can be summarized as getting the balance right between too little and too much risk-taking. Strategic process strength. An important enabler of BMT is the quality and maturity of decision-making processes and strategy development strength within organizations. And Miller, 15, when examining the organizational traits between successful and unsuccessful firms, found that strategy making in successful firms was accompanied by use of controls 174 appendices scanning, delegation and a lack of impedance from bureaucracy. Successful firms were also more adaptive, innovative, and analytical in strategy development, and more conscious of the environments in which they operated. O'Reilly and Tushman 16 further expanded on the importance of strategic process strength when discussing drivers of organizational ambidexterity and categorized them into 3 components: sensing, seizing, and reconfiguring. They found that organizations with ambidexterity employ a range of processes to sense opportunities and threats and devote resources to keep up to date on technological innovations and competitive
intelligence.
This is also embedded in the culture of the organization to encourage a culture of debate and commitment from senior leaders to encourage long-term thinking and exploration. Once opportunities are identified, they found that processes have to be in place to assemble complementary assets and allocate appropriate resources at the right time so as to seize and execute opportunities without falling into the
decision trap that many organizations face. Lastly,
O'Reilly and Tushman point out that long-term success and competitive advantage requires that leaders continuously push the boundaries and make tough decisions to move investment away from mature, declining services to emerging growth opportunity. They argue that it is not the decision separating exploratory and exploitative structures within the organization but rather the processes by which these 2 areas are integrated that enable organizations to achieve this long-term, sustainable competitive advantage and therefore, we add, enable them to confidently take on BMT.
Market Customer Focus Christensen et al.
17 wrote that a firm's ability and proclivity to change is directly impacted by its current customers who provide revenue today and therefore help the firm survive. As such, incumbents focus on the needs of existing customers and work on innovating for them to ensure they are retained. However, their research also found that when incumbents become solely or overly focused on existing customers, their internal processes become too rigid to pivot towards disruptive innovation. Leaders must, therefore, place an acute focus on the customer, both current and future, with the aim of undertaking BMI that will enhance future and new sources for revenue streams and certainly go beyond just reducing costs.
In their study of coping strategy for uncertainty in BMI, Schneckenberg et al.
18 also note that customer centricity plays an integral role in aligning the firm's value proposition to customer needs and behaviors, leading to a greater likelihood of higher profits. Their research indicated that technological changes inherent in cloud solutions enable organizations to flex their business models to address previously unknown customer problems. They suggest there are three components of customer centricity: BMI, identification of unknown customer needs, use products or services, and a thorough emphasis on customer-facing business processes. The Appendices 175 understanding of the customer combined with new technology can be a powerful frame for future new value propositions. Data and as readiness. This system's readiness enables organizations to undertake BMI without starting from scratch.
Reing et al.
19 found that it is not just data but the right types of data and digital processes that are a prerequisite to implementing AI. They point out that rapid changes in business models require agility to scale up and down, with that adaptability coming from a foundational or minimum set of information system capabilities. In addition to the foundational system capabilities, innovations in cloud and AI-based technology also require an uplift in the skills of the technology team themselves.
Wambata-Ganche et al.
20 note that multiple elements must be in place for success of AI in an organization, including data management, having the right domain knowledge and technologies. They found that information systems leadership can play a strong role in facilitating transformation, as they must make the right decisions that enable the above capability elements to be in place. Whether it be through internal capabilities or from external supplier, the information system infrastructure must also be flexible to scale as demand changes. In a nutshell, an antecedent, perhaps best considered as a prerequisite of effective cloud or AI-based transformation, must be to be well organized at the more mundane levels of his capability and maturity.
โน้ต 1 สนีหัว ว